Fear. It's been holding you back for too long. What if I told you it's actually your greatest fuel? Today, I'm giving you the fear framework to turn fear into action and finally take that leap. So let's go. Fear isn't always something we're born with. It's often planted inside us by others. From a young age, we're surrounded by voices, familia, friends, teachers, and even society. These voices are powerful, and sometimes, without even realizing it, they sow seeds of doubt and fear within us. Maybe you've heard things like, "That's too risky. You should play it safe." "You're dreaming too big. What if it doesn't work out?" People like us don't do things like that. Over time, those words take root. They shape how we see ourselves and the world. We start believing that the dreams we have aren't possible, or that success is reserved para alguien más. Fear begins to feel like truth instead of what it really is, a story someone else wrote for us. And here's the thing, when those seeds grow, they warp our perspective. They make us question our abilities and second guess our decisions. They keep us stuck in a cycle of overthinking, procrastinating, and settling for less than we deserve. But let me tell you something. Those seeds don't have to define you. Just because someone planted doubt in your mind doesn't mean you have to water it. You have the power to rewrite the story, to uproot those fears, and to plant seeds of courage, Latina resiliency, and self-belief instead. When you recognize that many of your fears didn't even come from you, it's liberating. You can start to question them. Whose voice is this? Is this really my fear or someone else's? What's the worst that could happen if I ignore this fear and take the leap? By doing this, you begin to reclaim your power. You stop living in a garden weeded by other people's doubts and start creating one filled with your own sueños. Recuerda, the life you're meant to live isn't limited by the seeds others planted. It's only limited by the ones you choose to nurture. So today, I challenge you, take a hard look at the fears holding you back. Identify the ones that were never yours to begin with and choose to let them go. You are stronger, braver, and more capable than those voices ever gave you credit for. It's time to prove them wrong and plant algo sin límites. Hola, bienvenida. I'm your host and Latina mentor, Vanessa Rae Alonso. You're listening to Latina Sin Límites, my podcast para tus sueños, tu business, y todo lo que quieras conseguir en la vida, relaciones, dinero y más. I'm a speaker, business a la madrina, immigration attorney, and CEO of Alonso & Alonso Attorneys at Law, where I make dreams come true and keep families together. Today, we're talking about something that every single one of us has faced: fear. You know that feeling, the doubt, the second guessing, the questions that keep you frozen when all you want to do is move forward. I know it because I've lived it. When I first dreamed of starting my business, fear had me stuck. I wondered if I was making a mistake, if I'd fail, if I'd let down my family. But then something shifted. I stopped letting fear control me and started using it to fuel me. That decision changed everything. In today's episode, I'm going to share how I turned my fear into the driving force behind my success and give you the fear framework you can take to do the same. If you're tired of letting fear hold you back, this episode is para ti. You know, it's funny. Fear has a way of planting itself deep inside you like a seed you don't even realize is growing. For me, that seed was planted early on, watching my dad. He was the most financially stable person in our familia, our rock. He worked as a policeman, picked up extra jobs on the weekends, and always made sure we had what we needed and more. Every year, we took a family vacation. None of my friends did that. That was rare in our circle. And because he was the one who had it all together, when he said, "I would never start a business, it's too stressful," I believed him. If he, the most stable person I knew, thought business was too risky, then who was I to think otherwise? My mom, though, she was different. She was always looking for ways to create abundance. She had that entrepreneurial spark, selling Melaleuca oil, trying different ventures like Avon, which then turned into Pampered Chef, real estate, and she even wanted to be a pharmaceutical salesperson because they made all the money. She was excited about it, ready to dive in. But my dad, he would look at her and say, "That's just another get-rich-quick scheme." Slowly, I started to believe that too. that owning a business was just one big risk, one big gamble. So growing up, I was accustomed to seeing my mom consistently seek these ideas for abundance, and my dad would always respond, nah, that's not gonna work. I even remember when I was younger, I would watch Golden Girls every day, one of my favorite shows growing up. And one of the supporting characters, Stan Zbornak, who was Dorothy's sleazy, sloppy, and rather annoying ex-husband, would always be saying, guys, we're gonna need all your money. We're going to buy all of this stuff and I'm going to sell it and we're going to get rich. So I would be like, look, that's the get rich quick scheme like my dad always talks about. Without realizing it, I started to build these negative stories about entrepreneurship based on all of these factors and unknowingly held them with me when I began my career as a lawyer. I was fearful about starting my practice and never considered it an option for myself. And the negative belief about entrepreneurship stayed with me for years. Even after I became a lawyer, that fear still held me back. I worked long hours, running from immigration interviews to court, feeling like I was hustling harder than the people above me. And then I'd met another lawyer, Latina like me, who had started her own firm. She had started from day one. She told me how much she loved it, how she'd never go back to working for anyone else. And still I told myself, no, I'll make partner one day. That's the dream. That's the path. Becoming a partner was part of my checklist. I had already accomplished getting my first job, which was earning $50,000 a year. The next goal was to own my home before I was 26, which I accomplished. Got married and then had babies. So in my mind, the safe route to reach all of these goals was to stay on the same path I was on, not take the path of entrepreneurship. But then life has a way of forcing your hand. I remember one moment in particular. In 2010, I remember my boyfriend, and now husband, Chris, who's an action taker and believed in me long before I did, surprised me one day. He ordered business cards for me. It said Vanessa Rae Alonso, immigration attorney, and had a beautiful image of Lady Justice in maroon. He also got me a P.O. box and even set up a Google number. He handed them to me and said, here, you're officially in business. I did an event at La Pulga, and my mom's friend helped by bringing a table. I was super shy to outreach about my abilities, so my mom's friend was the one talking to people and saying, come here, there's an immigration attorney, and if you have any questions, she can help you out. And still, I did nothing. I was frozen and filled with fear. Chris was practically handing me the tools to start my own practice, but I let the fear hold me back. It wasn't just fear of failure. It was fear of disappointing my family. My dad had spent years reinforcing the idea that businesses were unstable, that security came from a paycheck, from someone else taking the big risks. And my mom? She had tried so many entrepreneurial ventures only to see them fizzle out without the right support system to see them through to success. The message was clear: stability over dreams. So I continued being an associate in a high-volume case firm, doing all to prove my worthiness of being a partner one day. And yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was meant para más. Chris, thinking my fear was rooted in financial instability, gave me $3,000 from his GI Bill money and said, use this to finally start your own practice. And yet, I held on to it. It just sat in my account. The fear was still too strong. The voice in my head still whispered, what if you fail? 3 years passed and we moved to San Antonio. Chris, at this time, was stationed at the Pentagon, traveling the world while I stayed in San Antonio with our daughter. My mom also moved to San Antonio, and I found myself at a crossroads. My job situation became unstable. First, I was supposed to run a San Antonio immigration office. Then suddenly, they expected me to commute to Houston 4 days a week. That wasn't an option with a baby at home. I was forced to find another job, and I did. This time in a firm where I was much happier, given a new office location to manage, and worked for 5 more years. But even then, I kept telling myself I'd work one day towards making partner. Chris and I bought our first home together, and during this time, I sharpened my skills and perfected my advocacy ability for detained clients. I traveled to detention centers all over Texas, even out of state. So I was in and out of jails all day, helping people get bonded out and released, and then defending them before the immigration courts. I ran the firm's new office and their deportation defense departments from their other offices as well. I was doing really well, and I would tell myself that one day I would be a partner, and Chris, who I had convinced to go to law school, would become an associate there too. While I sharpened my advocacy skills for my clients, I ignored the most important skill: advocating for myself. I thought that in my silence, my work would speak for itself and they would see I deserved that role. Then one day, I was at risk of losing my license. Not for something I did, but for someone else's oversight. And I thought, if I'm going to put my license, my career, my future in jeopardy, it should be for something I believe in and have control over, not for someone else's business or someone else's dream. Because if I had stayed there, I wouldn't have control over my license. The destiny of my license was in someone else's hands, and my work wasn't mine. It was theirs. And that realization hurt. I had worked long hours for someone else's success, but I knew that wasn't where my story ended. If I was going to work this hard, it had to be for something that mattered to me and for something of my own design. That's when I joined a Facebook group called Amigas, women immigration lawyers who were also moms, a group started by a friend of mine who also started her firm years ago. So every few months, someone would post, "I did it, I started my own practice." And I watched these women take the leap. Women who had families, responsibilities, fears, just like me, but they did it anyway. And seeing that changed everything. Suddenly, something clicked. It wasn't just a dream anymore. It was a roadmap. I had a guide, a comunidad, women who had done it before me, model examples in sight. That was what I had been missing all along. Then one day, Chris did something that finally pushed me over the edge. At the time, he wasn't licensed yet, but he handed me $8,000 from his law school student loans and said, "Here, this is for your firm." He also helped me rent an office at a turnkey office suite center, and I was empowered with the clear roadmap from Amigas on how to start my practice and the example of other female attorneys that had reached their successful destiny. I had no more excuses and no other límites to stop me. No more reasons to wait. It was time, so I finally did it. I started my firm in 2017, Vanessa Rae Alonso, attorney at law. And guess what? The moment I announced I was leaving the firm and notified all my clients, which I have to do in accordance with my license, 30 clients followed me without me even asking. It was magical. That's when I realized all those years I spent afraid, they were wasted. Because when I finally stepped into this, the success was there waiting for me. I just had to claim it. And now, along with my husband, he and I structured our firm in a way that reflects our valores: compassionate, client-centered, and relentless advocacy, to name a few of our values. We closed from Christmas Eve to New Year's Day and paid our employees, something I could never have convinced a boss to do. I built a workplace where people feel valued and where we focus on serving our clients in a way we believe in. I created the kind of work environment I had longed to have my whole career. I give my team the flexibility and respect I had always wished for myself. I set my own rules, and my practice grew. It's been liberating. Looking back, I see it all differently. Fear isn't always a stop sign. Sometimes it's a compass. It points you exactly where you need to go. And if you listen, if you leap into it instead of letting it freeze you, you'll find your path. And my dad? For years, I avoided talking about my business with him. I didn't want to hear his doubts or misconceptions about immigration attorneys and business. Recently, I was able to face my fear of sharing what I had built and was able to change his perspective around entrepreneurship and his limited money beliefs. And he started asking questions and started listening. He leaned in with curiosity. And though he may never fully understand the journey I have taken, I know now that his fears weren't about me. They were about his own experiences, his own límites. I had outgrown those fears, and I had rewritten my story. So if you're standing at the edge of something big, something unknown, and you feel that fear creeping in, don't run from it. Don't let it freeze you. Use it. Let it push you forward. Because the only thing scarier than taking the leap is spending your whole life wondering what would have happened if you had. And if you're still unsure, find your comunidad. Surround yourself with people who have done what you want to do. I'm sure there's an online social group for that. Tell the ones who will hold you accountable, because once you speak it out loud, it becomes real. And once it's real, the only thing left to do is do it. Amiga, we've been taught that fear is something to avoid. But what if I told you that fear is actually your greatest fuel? After recognizing that these seeds of fear were planted by someone else and sharing my journey of pulling these weeds and replacing them with new seeds to start and grow my business, I want to share with you a simple yet powerful framework to turn your fear into action. I call it the fear framework. Whether it's starting a business, asking for that raise, or stepping into a leadership role, this framework will help you face your narrative, expand your perspective, act before you feel ready, and reframe your fear as fuel. Because the real risk is letting fear hold you back from the life you're meant to live. Let's dive in. Now, F stands for face your narrative. It's about understanding where your fear comes from. So it's all about reflecting on the stories you grew up with. Were you taught that business is risky, that financial stability only comes from a salary, or that the industry you crave to break into is dominated by people you have nothing in common with? When you're asking yourself these questions, I want you to identify the limiting beliefs passed down through familia, your culture, or past experiences, and challenge those beliefs. Are they truths or just perspectives shaped by fear? And the actionable step to help you face your narrative is to journal about the biggest fears holding you back. Ask yourself, is this fear protecting me or is it keeping me stuck? Now for E, which stands for expand your perspective. And to do that, you need to surround yourself with people who have done what you want to do. So that means joining comunidades, seeking mentors, and learning from those who have successfully overcome that same fear. And by expanding your perspective, you are shifting your mindset from, this isn't possible for me, to, how can I make this work for me? Find real-life examples of Latinas succeeding on their own terms. If they did it, why not you? To help you expand your perspective, the action steps to take is to connect with a mentor or join a support group, just like I did with Amigas. See what's possible when you step outside your bubble. Now we're in the A of the fear framework. We covered F and E. For A, it's act before you feel ready. Mis amores, fear will always be there. There will always be a new level of fear each step you take, but action is what builds confidence. So instead of waiting to feel ready, start with small, manageable steps. Break big goals into bite-sized actions. And to help you get started, I encourage you to make the first move today. Shift from what if I fail to what if I succeed. So I challenge you to do one small thing hoy mismo toward your sueño. Register your business name. Set up a meeting with a Latina mentor. Or tell someone your accountability plan. And finally, we're at the R, which is reframe fear as fuel. Fear is not a stop sign. It's a compass pointing you toward growth. Instead of seeing fear as a reason to stop, recognize it as proof that you're stepping into something bigger than yourself. Every successful entrepreneur, leader, and change maker felt fear, and they did it anyway. The real risk? Staying in the same place because fear won. So next time fear creeps in, I want you to say to yourself, this is not fear stopping me. This is fear showing me where I need to grow. Recuerda, your fear is not your enemy. It's your fuel. You don't need to erase fear. You need to work with it. Let it push you forward instead of holding you back. And if you're watching this, I'd love for you to share in the comments below, what's the one fear-driven action from the fear framework that you'll take on today? Mis amores, for today's Caja de Tesoros, I'm sharing the fear framework worksheet that will help you turn fear into fuel. If you're already subscribed to the Latina Sin Límites newsletter, then you can download the worksheet ahora mismo. If you haven't subscribed yet, check out the link in the show notes so you can get on the list to receive the free worksheet. In this worksheet, you'll see all the actions with questions to help you harness your fear and take action. Plus, a commitment section to place your deadline and focus on one action item to move the needle forward. Fear will always be there, but so will opportunity. Recuerda que the real risk in all of this is allowing fear to win. Use this worksheet as a guide and take your next bold step today. I'd love for you to share how you'll face your fear via Instagram stories by tagging me at Latina Sin Límites pod. Wow, what a journey we've been on today. We started by uncovering how fear can be planted in us from a young age, how it holds us back, keeps us stuck, and makes us believe that playing it safe is the only way forward. But as we've seen, fear isn't just an obstacle, it's a signal, a sign that we're on the edge of something bigger. We walked through my own story, how fear delayed my success for 7 years, and how I finally turned it into fuel. And now you have the fear framework to do the same. Face your narrative. Identify where your fear comes from and challenge it. Expand your perspective. Surround yourself with people who inspire and push you. Act before you feel ready. Take small, intentional steps forward. Reframe fear as fuel. Use it as a sign to growth, not a reason to stop. And to help you make this real, I've put together a free worksheet for you to take action ahora mismo. Download it using the link in the show notes to subscribe to my newsletter and commit to one bold step today. Because the only thing scarier than taking the leap is staying exactly where you are. So tell me, what's one fear-driven action you're committing to this month? Share it with me on Instagram at Latina Sin Límites Pod or in the comments below, and let's hold each other accountable. Muchas gracias for being here, for showing up for yourself, and for taking this journey with me. If today's episode resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with another Latina who needs to hear it. You are limitless. You are capable. And fear, it's just the beginning of your next breakthrough. Until next time, keep pushing forward. I'll see you in the next episode of Latina Sin Límites. I am your host and mentor, Vanessa Rae Alonso, and you can find more from me at www.vanessaraealonso.com and on Instagram at Vanessa Rae Alonso. This show was produced, managed, and mixed by AS Media. On the next episode, my mindset coach, Pam Covarrubias, will be joining us to talk about calladita culture. Muchas gracias for listening to Latina Sin Límites.